Every once in a while, you run into something that doesn't just interest you, it kind of reframes the thing you've spent your whole life doing. And for me, that's what the story of the Comedian Harmonists has become. I heard their name before, in nothing more than a brief mention in college, I think, David Wright's history class, that kind of thing. And then over the years, traveling to Germany for all sorts of coaching and teaching opportunities, their name kept coming up. Everyone who loves close harmony in Germany know this group. And I always felt like I should know more about them than I do. But it never really clicked until 2023. I was in New York City for the Barbershop Harmony Society's midwinter convention, and good friends Terry Reynolds and Greg Teep told me that I really needed to go see this new show, Harmony. I didn't even really know what it was about, but I've always trusted their taste in shows, at least one of them, and I just blindly bought a ticket. I'll admit I wasn't all that interested, but based on their recommendation, I brought some close friends of mine, Dave and Karen Rourke and David McEachern, and it was actually David's first Broadway show, and I remember all of us walking out of the theater just kind of quiet, processing what we just saw. And I remember thinking as we were walking back to a convention full of close harmony enthusiasts, thinking, how do we not know this story? And I was so moved that I had to see it again before it closed. So a few weeks later, I brought my good friend Cy Wood with me, who also didn't want to see it, but he didn't understand what it was all about. And seeing it a second time, it hit even harder. This isn't just a story about a great group. This is a story about one of the most popular musical acts in the world around the 1930s. 6 performers, 5 singers, and a pianist, and they were known for their tight harmonies, their unprecedented precision. They incorporated humor and entertaining bits. They had everything, and just like that, it was over. And the part that gets me is their music didn't go away. Almost all of their video was destroyed, but many of their recordings still exist. Their arrangements are still around, but their story seemed to completely disappear with the exception of the Germans who know and love their story and want to continue to keep their legacy alive. That's where it stopped being interesting to me and started to become more personal. I've spent my entire life in barbershop. Close harmony has been my world for over 25 years now, and we talk all the time about connection and vulnerability, and we obsess over competition and locking and ringing chords, all of that. But what we're really talking about here is people. People listening to each other, people trusting, people harmonizing, people from different walks of life giving up selfish tendencies so that something bigger can exist. And that's exactly what the Comedian Harmonists were doing at the highest level. And I just couldn't get past the fact that most people in our barbershop ecosystem just don't know who they are. The Barbershop Harmony Society is the largest collection of close harmony enthusiasts anywhere in the world. And we don't know one of the most important close harmony groups that ever existed. That's a miss. So part of this for me is one person's attempt at correcting that. With 100 of my closest friends for 5,000 of our closest friends. But this isn't just about putting a set on a competition stage. This is us trying to introduce or reintroduce something to the largest group of close harmony enthusiasts that are collected annually. When seeing the show for that second time with Cy, I told him that the barbershop world needs to know this story, and he turned to me at intermission and said, "You need to do this." And that was it. That was the moment that I was convinced. A few months later, I asked Steve Armstrong to come with me to the New York Public Library so we could watch the archival recording together. He's arranged sets like this in the past for his chorus, so I wanted to get his take on whether or not this could work in the barbershop style. And he walked out of that viewing the same way that I did. And then it just started building from there, piece by piece, people who cared about this, figuring out how to do it justice, because you can't know their story and you can't hear their music the same way ever again without doing something about it. So Steve found some really interesting and creative ways to tell their story without breaking the things that would keep it barbershop. And he added a bunch of other Easter eggs that I think he'll introduce in a separate video. But one of the most impactful moments in the show is when one of the harmonists reads a note that came from a concentration camp, written in charcoal on a piece of cloth, and it basically said, "Surely this is the end of the world. Surely God is dead, but the stars, how can they be shining now?" And the lyrics of the song that follow that quote, which is the ballad that we're using to tell the second half of the story, built off of that story, saying things like, "How can they be shining now when hope seems so far?" And there's a lyric at a really pivotal moment in the song towards the end that starts by asking, "Will they?" And then everything pauses. And the harmonists proceed without any instrumentation to sing a cappella, "Dare they?" And that shift from "will they" to "dare they," while small, changes everything. It stops being about possibility and hope and becomes more about courage. So when people hear our set, I don't really care if their reaction is, "That was impressive," or "performed at a really high quality." That's not the point. I really want people to lean into the story, to get curious, to look up the Comedian Harmonists and listen to their recordings that are still available and think, how did we not know this? Maybe even consider bringing their music and their story into their own world. Because right now, this group is still kind of a best-kept secret, and it shouldn't be. So if you've never heard of the Comedian Harmonists before, that's fine because most people haven't. But if you're watching this, and more importantly, watching this far, you're already a part of changing that. At the end of the day, this isn't about recreating something perfectly. It's about remembering and honoring. It's about making sure that something this important doesn't stay a secret. And if you're paying attention to this, you're a part of that now. So thank you for listening, and we hope you can join us either in St. Louis this July or even at our fall show in September, where we hope to perform even more of an extended set, developing their story even further. Thanks for listening.